What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel and to another weekly 3D model. This week we're going to be making a small building. Honestly, I wasn't even planning on making this for this week's model, but I went down a rabbit hole earlier in the week looking at small miniatures and dioramas online, and there's so many awesome small buildings people make, and it really got me wanting to make a small building for this week's video. I think the only other small building I've ever made on this channel was a command tower, which was a lot of fun to make, so I'm hoping this one will be the same. Now, I am by no means an environmental artist. It's definitely out of my comfort zone and I rarely make any type of building. But like I said, I thought it would just be a lot of fun to change things up for this week. So I definitely got carried away with the modeling, and I'm not gonna lie, for some reason I thought it would be a quick model due to the fact that it's small, and because the reference I was using was just small miniatures and dioramas. But in reality, it doesn't change much because there's so many small objects in the scene, and the more I worked on it, the more I wanted to keep adding to it. So in the end, it definitely took a lot longer than I originally planned it to. Now, of course, all of this will be available in real time along with all of the working files, and you can find it all on my Patreon page, which will be linked in the description below. So after visualizing in my head how I wanted this model to look, I thought it'd be really cool to add some graffiti on some of the walls on the sides of the building. So I thought it'd be fun to ask my Discord community if anyone would like to help out in creating some graffiti for this model. JGM and Gabe stepped up and made some awesome polyrender graffiti tags for me, so a really big thanks to both you guys for offering your help with some of these graffiti pieces. And if you want to see more awesome art, you should definitely check out some of their work. They're both very talented artists, and you can find their links to both their socials in the description below. So, like most cases when we do these random 3D models, I didn't really know how I was going to approach it. I luckily found some random images online that I thought looked cool, so my idea was to take parts of these images that I found interesting and I can incorporate them into my small building. Now, having limited time to spend on this model is definitely going to be a challenge. So to get this done on time, we're going to simplify a lot of the shapes. For example, the electrical boxes on the sides of the building are just going to be simple cubes and they're not going to have a lot of detail on them. Along with the building itself, we will be adding a lot of those details into materials instead of making it into geometry. So, like always, we will slowly start blocking out the main shapes and start figuring out how we want this building to look. It's always important to not rush the blockout stage, especially when you don't really know how you're going to approach it. So let's just take our time and we can continue blocking some stuff out. Alright, so here is the building in its finished form. Now there are a few small adjustments that I did make to the model, and I ended up actually making a lot of them at the end of the texturing, and one of the main things was the interior of this building. So if you'll notice throughout the whole texturing and modeling part, I basically left the whole interior of the building just hollow. My plan was to just have these windows not too transparent, that way you won't see the interior, but I noticed when I was doing the renders and I was looking at the final model after the textures were done, and it was pretty obvious that the inside is looking quite dark, especially because I had a lit up open sign. It didn't really make sense that the interior would be so black, even though it was open. It kind of looked closed, so I thought at the last minute that I should add some sort of interior. So really quickly, I'll show you what changes I did to this model that I did not show you in the whole 3D modeling and texturing process. So what I decided to do was add 3 planes on the inside of the interior. So originally that's all I had. I just found that when you can see through the windows, you can actually see the graffiti that's showing up on the side of these walls because they were just see-through. So I originally just added these 3 planes, that way you can just see black and you wouldn't actually see the graffiti showing on the interior. And that unfortunately wasn't enough. When I brought it back into Substance, it still looked a little bit dark. So my idea was to have a plane here so that way you can see through the window and you can see some sort of image on the inside. So I jumped on Google Images and found a random image of a store interior. And it wasn't really important since I knew you wouldn't see it too much. And that way I can just quickly assign it to this plane and hopefully we can actually see an interior when we do those renders. Now another important thing that I did add was a small plane as well on the top. That way I can add a bright emissive glow to this that can light up the inside a tiny bit. That way you can see this graphic on this plane. So the only changes that I really did to the model were these planes here. And like I said, it's just to add some sort of interior so it can just hopefully look a little bit more interesting and realistic. So what I decided to do with this model was break this thing up into 5 different groups for the 5 different textures that I had applied. So if I open up the UV editor here and I open up the very first group, it's basically the whole building structure. So simple enough, I just did the walls and the windows and I added this onto its own texture set. Now the reason why I separated these walls to their own texture was just to take advantage of all of this UV space. Since it's the most important part of this whole model is to have that brick and all that texture on the walls, I really wanted to enlarge these UV shells as large as I could so I can have a lot of resolution in those materials. And of course, it's important to straighten these shells as straight as I could. That way when I have that brick pattern, it's not going to be skewed sideways and all the materials will look correct. So the second group is all the ground items, and that's pretty straightforward. It's just everything on the exterior of the building, which I originally wasn't even planning to add, but after the building was created, I just thought it would look cool with some objects around there. And to be honest, if I had more time, it would be fun to add a bunch of garbage and papers and loose litter that was around, but like I said, you could just keep going and adding to the model, so you have to know when to quit, and I just decided to keep it fairly simple, but a few objects definitely added a lot to the scene, at least in my opinion. And the third group is the storefront. So this is everything, all the interiors and the front. So all of these signs and the windows, as well as just the main objects here and those other little small planes that I added. Now I wanted to make a note, I did add these in very small spots. So if I select these, you'll see they're just tiny little planes. All these black ones are all overlapping. And I just filled in tiny little areas that I had. For example, this little square down here are all those black planes. And even though technically, if I throw in the checkered, you'll see that they're skewed, they're stretched, but it doesn't matter because it's a plain black material going on there, so I didn't really need to worry about that. The only one that was important was this one right here. I didn't need to make sure that it wasn't stretching too much, since I did want to add some sort of image on here. This is the only UV shell that was important, so I did try to make it a little bit larger. But everything else is nice and straight. All of these are all my posters, and it's important to have them all straight, so applying materials will be a lot easier when we jump into Substance Painter. And the fourth group is all the piping and this gate and little door on the side. And the reason why I separated this, to be honest, I probably could have combined this into another one, but I wanted to have some cool graffiti on this door, and I thought just once again having it large in my UV editor will just allow me to have more resolution and hopefully have that detail in that graffiti show up a little bit cleaner. And then my last group is everything else in my scenes, so it's basically just the stairs on the side, the top objects on the roof, along with this front banner here. And this is the most important one to have sort of straight, especially on this bottom little face here, since I'm gonna have some words. But everything else was pretty straightforward. I kind of just squished it all in to this UV space. And that's how I prepared this model for Substance. So now all we have to do is assign a different texture to all of these groups. And then we can export this building and we can jump over to Substance Painter and we can start our texturing. Oh, and don't forget, if you want to see the whole UV mapping process in real time, it will all be available on my Patreon page. All right, let's jump over to Substance. All right, so now jumping over to Substance Painter, we can go ahead and load in our FBX file from Maya. So when it came to the texturing, it was all pretty straightforward. Like usual, I just want to fill in all those empty meshes with some sort of material, and then we can start refining those materials afterwards, depending on how they look beside one another. Now, when it came to those textures, there are 3 specific textures that I took off the Substance website that I use for this model. So the main one is a texture called Old Damaged Brick, and that's pretty straightforward. It's just that brick material on the front of my building. I just wanted to go for that brick look. There was that one reference photo that I took a lot of inspiration from, the whole brick on the top with transitioning halfway down the side to a different material. I like that whole idea. So there was 2 materials I needed to use for that. Like I said, the Old Damaged Brick for that main brick, and then there's a grungy plaster wall material that I downloaded as well that I'm going to use for all the other walls on my building. And there's one more material called Heavily Damaged Brick Wall, and that's just a different bump I used basically underneath my brick. So all I do afterwards is just draw on a bump effect on different areas of my brick material. That way there's a little extra layer of bump and basically like grunginess that just roughs up that brick material in different areas, just to add some more variation to it to make it look less consistent and a little bit more beaten and worn out. So those 3 materials I downloaded from the Substance website, and they should be free for everybody that is paying for a Substance subscription. So you should be able to go on there and download whatever materials you want. Another important thing I use for this are all of those posters. So for those, I just jumped on Google Images and found random images of basically like corner store posters that would be in Windows. And I made some adjustments to some to avoid some copyright issues. So for the monster logo, for example, I just altered it to make polyrender, and one of the Mars bars, I believe, I just changed it to a P-render bar. But you get the idea. I just took random images that I found on Google Images, and I can just paste those onto my posters. as well as all the words. So on my banner, I have like cigarettes and lotto and soda. I just decided to use alphas that I created in Photoshop. So a lot of the fonts that come with Substance Painter just weren't fitting for me. They're very limited, so I decided to jump in Photoshop, make a few alphas for those texts, and I can just drag those into my Substance file to paste on those words on my model. And everything else that came with the textures was pretty straightforward. So I just used those 2 large graffiti tags that my Discord members helped make for me. And then all the other graffiti tags, I just Googled free to use graffiti online, and I just pasted those onto my walls as well. So like I said at the beginning, what I'm gonna focus on doing is just filling in those empty meshes with some sort of material. I don't want to worry about dialing in the perfect material right off the bat. A lot of things can change once you start filling in other meshes around it. So I just don't want to worry about getting everything perfect. I just want to fill them in, and then we can start refining it afterwards. So let's start texturing our building. Alright, and that is everything. That is the whole 3D modeling and texturing process that I did to create this small building. I know it's a little bit different than usual, but I really hope you guys enjoyed this week's video, and if you did, hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see more random weekly 3D models. And as always, a really massive thank you to all of my patrons. I really can't thank you all enough for your continuous support. And don't forget, if you want to see this whole video in real time along with the full UV mapping process, or you just want to see some of the working files or FBX model, all of that will be available on my Patreon page, which you can find in the link in the description below. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed this week's video, and I will catch you in the next one.